Professor Zardin's crystalline tendrils flickered with satisfaction as he surveyed the lecture hall. 200 students from across the Galactic Coalition sat in perfect rows, their various appendages poised over data tablets. The amphitheater on Station Kepler 442 represented the pinnacle of interstellar academia, where the brightest minds gathered to study the universe's immutable laws. And so, Zardin's voice resonated through his translation matrix. We conclude that gravitational manipulation remains purely theoretical. The energy requirements make it fundamentally impossible for any civilization below Type 3 status. A single hand rose from the human section, a bold gesture that made several Vrin students recoil in their seats. Zardin's optical sensors focused on the young woman, her dark hair pulled back in what humans called a ponytail. Yes, Cadet Imogen. He tried to keep the exasperation from his tone. Humans always had questions. Imogen stood, her posture unnervingly casual for such a prestigious institution. Professor, with respect, humans have been using practical gravity control for 3 months now. We have 17 operational installations across our home system. The lecture hall erupted. Aclinthian students breathing spiracles flared in alarm. Tusither began hissing in their seats. Zardin's tendrils went rigid. Impossible, he stated flatly. Cadet, I have been teaching gravitational physics for 400 standard years. The mathematics are absolute. Your species has barely achieved faster-than-light travel. You lack the infrastructure, the computational power, the fundamental understanding. We don't use mathematics, Imogen interrupted, and the hall fell silent. Interrupting a Zelenaran professor was considered anywhere from rude to suicidal, depending on the species. Well, not the way you do. Zardin's bioluminescence shifted to a dangerous amber. Explain yourself, Cadet. Imogen pulled a small device from her uniform pocket, no larger than her palm. It looked absurdly primitive. Human technology often did. Metal casing, visible seams, and what appeared to be physical buttons. She placed it on her desk, and it rose slowly into the air, rotating gently before settling at eye level. Every student in the hall leaned forward. This is a Mark 7 personal gravity regulator, Imogen said. Standard issue for human construction workers. My cousin Frank uses one to install solar panels on orbital platforms. He's not a physicist. He dropped out of community college. The device was clearly defying Station Kepler's artificial gravity. Zardin's advanced sensors detected no conventional propulsion, no electromagnetic fields, none of the theoretical exotic matter signatures that should be necessary. Just a localized gravitational anomaly that shouldn't exist. How? The word escaped Zardin before he could stop himself. Imogen smiled, that peculiar baring of teeth that humans use to express pleasure. We got frustrated. Frustrated? Yeah, see, about 6 months ago, a construction crew was trying to position a 3,000-ton fusion reactor core in Earth orbit. The positioning thrusters kept failing. The timeline was impossible. And the project manager guy named Shen, he just got mad. Imogen's eyes sparkled with an emotion Zardin couldn't quite identify. So he went down to the university, grabbed some physics students from a bar, and told them to fix it. Gave them a case of beer and a weekend. A Vrin student made a choking sound. They solved theoretical gravitational manipulation. While intoxicated, well, they didn't solve the theory, Imogen corrected. They couldn't make the math work either. So they just built something that worked anyway. Trial and error. They figured if gravity was just curved spacetime, maybe they could curve it back. Started with some superconductors, added a rotating magnetic field configuration, threw in some quantum-locked particles, because Sarah, that's one of the students, she thought they looked cool. Zardin felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Genuine disbelief. That's not how physics works. Yeah, that's what their professor said too. Imogen replied cheerfully. Right before they demonstrated it worked. Then he tried to write a paper explaining why it worked, but he's still not done. Something about the math requiring 17-dimensional calculations that might be easier if we just keep building the things instead of understanding them. She pressed a button on the device. It shot upward, passed through the lecture hall's 20-meter ceiling, or rather, the ceiling accommodated it. Local gravity inverting, then returned to hover beside her head. The really funny part, Imogen continued, is that we've already moved past this model. Mark 7 South are considered obsolete. The new Mark 9 South can create stable gravity wells strong enough to hold small asteroids. We're using them for mining operations. My little brother has one he modified to help him skateboard. He's 14. The lecture hall had become a tableau of shocked alien faces. A Scyther student's translator was simply repeating impossible in a loop. Zarthine's tendrils trembled. For centuries of teaching, for centuries of explaining the fundamental limits of physics. And these humans had just ignored those limits and built the impossible. Because they were frustrated with a construction deadline. This violates everything we know. He said quietly, does it though? Imogen picked up the device, examining it with obvious affection. Or did you just assume the math had to come first? Humans have a saying, we'll figure it out as we go. Sometimes we build the airplane before we fully understand aerodynamics. Sometimes we use electricity before we completely grasp quantum mechanics. We're really good at making things work, then reverse engineering the theory later. But the energy requirements alone, yeah, we weren't sure about that either. Turns out if you configure the quantum-locked particles in a Klein bottle topology. Don't ask me to explain it. I barely passed that class. It draws ambient energy from spacetime itself. 0-point energy, maybe? The engineers stopped trying to explain it after the third working prototype. They just published the specs and moved on. Zarthine looked at the device, then at Imogen, then at his 200 students, whose entire understanding of physics was crumbling before their eyes. Class dismissed, he said softly. As the students filed out in stunned silence, Zarthine approached Imogen. Your species is going to reshape the galaxy. Imogen grinned. We're just getting started, Professor. Wait until you see what the engineering students at MIT are doing with temporal mechanics. They're calling it aggressive clock adjustment, and it's definitely not time travel. But she shrugged. It sort of does the same thing. Zarthine watched her leave, the impossible device floating beside her like a tame pet. He had been teaching for 400 years, and in that time, he had learned one universal truth. The laws of physics were absolute. Perhaps, he thought, he needed to add an asterisk, unless humans get frustrated enough. He began drafting his resignation letter. Or perhaps an application to study at this MIT place. After all, if he couldn't teach them, maybe they could teach him how to break the universe's rules with nothing but determination and excessive confidence. The Galactic Coalition would never be the same.